Hello again, and welcome back to Seriously Curious, a podcast all things business strategy and design. I'm Chris Rockwell. I'm president and founder of Lextant, human experience firm here in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm super excited to have as our guest today Heramb Dandekar. He's a global design leader, many industries, including consumer goods and automotive and future mobility. So I'm super excited. Today we're going to be talking about where experience design is headed, and where its leadership is headed in large companies. And we're also going to be talking about kind of the future of AI and smart experiences and what we're hearing from consumers, what they want from them, and how we're going to deliver those things. So, Heramb, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here, and congratulations for committing to putting out a podcast every so often. I know it's a bit of a production, so congratulations on that. I believe you're one of the few individuals who've worked across industries in this space of human-centered design and really know what's going on, what's to come. So thank you for doing this for us. Thank you for doing this for the young individuals who are hoping to enter into this field.
Yeah, thanks. I'm really glad that you're here today. Heramb, tell me a little bit about your journey in human-centered design and experience design, and specifically around leadership of these companies that you've been with.
So growing up in India, in a modest household, I was the only child, right? So without having any siblings at home, and after school, I had quite a bit of time on my hands to sort of be creative. So it became an obvious pastime for me is use my pencils and pens. And as I grew into my teenagers and getting closer to college, it was always clear to me that I am a creative individual and I want to do something that's creative. Now, I also enjoyed electronics and how things work. So Legos, electronics. I started learning how to use a breadboard back when I was, I think, 10 or 8. So those things were always on the back of my head, but when it came to going to college, I never thought I would be an engineer, right? And back in India, back then, there's only 3 professions, right? There is engineer, lawyer, and a doctor.
Okay.
That's it. So I never thought I fit in any of those areas, and my mother definitely knew me. I wasn't gonna take a direction from them. So she did something that I really appreciate to this day. She found out about an engineer from Mahindra, which is an auto manufacturer in India, and she set up a meeting with him at his house just to have a chat with me, right? And this is me when I was 17 years old. When I went there and had a conversation about just my passion, what I like to do, and what I would see myself doing in the future, he really opened my eyes when he mentioned that design, Heramb, is not just aesthetics. It's not just how things look or feel.
Right.
When it comes to wiring, when it comes to circuit boards, that includes design as well, right? So I'll never forget that. There was that light bulb moment where, wow. And I was like, yeah, I'm all in. Let's learn about the fundamentals of how things are built and work. So got into engineering. I was amongst these geniuses in engineering. And I was like, man, this seems like a tough crowd here. But as I went on, even though I wasn't as serious and I was always messing around, I actually ended up doing really well and got a scholarship during that time. And that gave me the confidence that, okay, I am creative, but I also am good at the technology aspect of things, right? And mechanical engineering is pretty broad.
Yeah.
So it didn't really narrow it down into computer or anything, and it just kept it broad, and that's how I wanted it to be. And that was where I started. However, towards the end of engineering, let's say the third year of engineering, I was sure that this is not where I want to end my education and start working. I started exploring at options and a couple of schools that I looked at in the US. Back then, there was no user experience courses or HCI. It was mainly ergonomics, or it was called information systems or systems engineering and things like that. So you had to dive deeper into the coursework to understand what are you learning, right? University of Michigan was my school of choice because it was in Michigan, the hub of automotive, and automotive was always close to my heart. So I started exploring, applied for it. I got a scholarship. I also started conversations with my professors who I wanted to work with as a research assistant. But Vivek was the master of ergonomics, and talking about how the cars are designed, whether it's windshields, buttons, all of that. And there was one thing that I learned about. It was called quality function deployment, right? Voice of customer, mapping that to engineering requirements. Basically, that's the fundamental of research in the foundation of user experience, and that really got me fired up. That's what really ignited that fire within me, where it's like, okay, this makes sense, and product should be built that way. I don't think even in the late 2000s or mid 2000s, products weren't that intuitive. Some products were designed for aesthetics only, some were usability only. There wasn't a good balance between usability and desirability back then, right?
Yeah. Experience was kind of a new idea, really,
Exactly.
I mean, you had some folks who were doing a type of participatory design, but it was very sort of literal, and it was very systems design focused. And human factors, I thought, was the closest to what became user experience. But interestingly, I don't think the human factors community led it, which I was really surprised, because I was always a little frustrated with human factors that they seem to be stuck. Look at this huge opportunity to lead companies in this experiential space and collaborate with designers and collaborate, with marketing and business folks. And so when I graduated, I sort of had to really learn a lot about design to become design sensitive. I don't know if you found that same experience once you graduated and you got into the design world. There was a lot of skills that I lacked about what it was like to bring new designs to life,
Right.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one. So this is where I think my passion for design, passion for art, sketching, all of that really helped me. And I was fortunate that I sort of had that in my blood, because I was able to pick up the tools, Illustrator, whatever the tools that I started with back then. So that part really has shaped my journey, because working at global matrix organizations and leading organizations at companies like Ford and Whirlpool is not easy. Because there's a lot of negotiation, there's a lot of cross-functional collaboration that's needed. And if you really are an engineer, and if you are really passionate about design, you're able to look at things, empathize with both the groups, look at things from both point of views, and are able to make the right trade-offs. And that's what it takes for a product to be profitable and balance that need or balance that line between the user desire, user need, and the business objectives. Because that's what we're here for. That's why we have our roles, is to balance that.
Yeah, I think that's where that kind of systems thinking mentality can really help individuals, right? To not only think about the specific design system, but the way it's engineered and brought to life. I think in my experience anyway is that universities still aren't doing enough with sort of collaborative design, multidisciplinary design and systems engineering. So when I teach at universities and things like that, I'm always really pushing for that cross-pollination.
Yes. So I've been a thesis reviewer and advisor for CCS as well, and been going there pretty often. And that's what I've been having conversations with their leadership about, is how can we get the CMF designers, the industrial designers, and the product designers or UX designers to work together? because that's what the industry wants. That's what you're going to learn in the industry. Let's start that early, right? Let's get them to leverage each other and each other's skills. And there will be healthy tension, just like there's in industry. But you have to, again, conflict resolution is an important skill to have. Right. So, yes.
At Lextant, we talk about, design. First of all, big D design. Everything's design. Product, process, space. Everything is a design problem. And we think it takes both art and science.
Groups and teams, because they have their own KPIs, right? Of course, everybody has their perspective, and their group is going to try to accentuate what they want. And it's not the wrong answer, because they are in those shoes for a reason. They have an expertise. They're hired for that. But what's critical is you have to zoom out. You have to zoom out and look at the business objective of this product, of what makes that product successful, what makes the business case successful. And I have always told my teams and the adjacent teams that we have to think about it from the other team's perspective. Of course, I have a strong perspective on being the user's advocate, being the customer's advocate, but not at the expense of the business objectives, right? So there is that balance you have to ride. And I have even been part of town halls for the engineering team, where I'm talking to the software teams and telling them that just because we have the user experience title doesn't mean we're the only experience designers. We are no one. And I had a joke. I used to say, you complete us, right? Like, we're no one without you guys bringing our ideas to lives and our concepts to life. And no one's stopping you, the engineering team, from bringing ideas to us either. We don't have a stamp on the ideas. We believe everybody's creative, so let's work together.
Yeah, I think when design folks get sort of insular and sort of myopically focused on design, they wind up missing opportunities to lead. So a lot of the companies that we're working with, I talk to design teams, and those design teams are like, hey, we want a seat at the table and we can't get it, and it's like, well, what are we doing to help them succeed? So first of all, it's like, what things can I be doing to help the person downstream or upstream from me succeed is one thing. And I also think, your point about the intersection between experience and business success is really important. Sometimes I refer to that as like experience value management. There's no such thing as an ideal design program, There are trade-offs along the way. And, as people who are primarily involved in the creation of experiences for customers have to do it in such a way that it can be manufactured in a cost-effective way. So not everything is equally important. So how do we understand and help work with our sort of R&D teams to bring things to life that are, you might not get everything you want. Maybe there's only a few key moments of truth that we really need to make sure we succeed at. And then, or maybe there's design trade-offs we can make to make it, less expensive to manufacture or faster to get to market. We need to be sensitive to that, because I think that's really where we start, you see companies going, oh, okay, this is how design helps us succeed in business.
Really embracing diverse point of views. And this also means my immediate team that, I've worked with members in North America, South America, Europe, Asia Pacific. So really learning about the cultures and the sensitivities and the different perspectives that everybody comes from. And I truly believe that really adds to the value of your team, and it really eventually produces a better outcome, right? So, and this also applies to adjacent teams, right? So whether it's business, whether it's engineering, making them part of this collective effort. And even when we go on research, I've requested the engineering teams and the business teams to be a part of it, because they can see firsthand what are those insights instead of just looking at the report. It's extreme, and it has turned out to be extremely valuable for them. And it helps them empathize with our perspective, right? So it's all about, again, working together, right? So
I used to use business management as my pilot subjects in research when I was evaluating things. I'd make them come down and use the new systems, and they would be like, "Oh, this is confusing and hard," and we'd be like, "Okay,
there you go.
Let's work on this together." So, Heramb, tell me a little bit about your work with Ford and Lincoln's 2020 model lineup. That's some work that we kind of worked on a little bit together, but you had so much involvement in that.
Yeah, that was a great experience. I think it started with Lincoln brand, right? So I think our engagement on the attribute model was back in 2015, I believe.
We were looking at what customers want from luxury experiences, right?
Yes, with Mark Doerr and team. And it was a great way to, again, it was a deeper take on quality function deployment, right? Like that, the old school way of looking at it, from VOC to engineering requirement. It was more about how do we want people to feel? What's the emotion we want to evoke, right? I believe it was eye-opening because we did so much research. I mean, the whole idea for Lincoln was to revamp their brand. It wasn't doing well, and we didn't want to be followers of a different brand. We really wanted to embrace the true American luxury and define it. So the design team, David Woodhouse and Lincoln Design, did a great job of putting some of that design ethos right together. And I was a part of the team that was leading the interior, physical and digital, and laying out how does that look for Lincoln's moving forward, and that trickled into Ford as well. But laying out that roadmap for Ford Motor Company. And one of as we did extensive research in China, because China was a big market and is a big market for Lincoln. And a couple eye-openers were, in 2016, 68% of Chinese Chinese car buyers were first-time car buyers, right? They've never owned a car before, first-time car buyers. So if you think about what their reference point is, you basically have a clean slate, in a way, right? So that was an amazing and interesting discovery. Now, of course, it's a Lincoln. We're going to sell it in the United States and in China, so we can't quite start with a blank slate because you have Americans who would want to build on their mental models.
Sure.
And want familiarity. So those were some key discoveries that come to my mind, but there was so much more, even in terms of usage and driver distraction when we used to test them on the road in China.
It's interesting. I mean, if any students are out there, it's an amazing career. You really get to see so many different kinds of cultures and experiences and things like that.
Yeah, I'm proud of the Lincoln team. Even after I left, the new 2024 Lincoln Navigator, the Nautilus, the interiors, the way they've evolved, they've stuck with the strategy. It's come a long way. Our goal back, if you look at the 2020 model onwards, was always to, number one, embrace what does it mean to be quiet luxury, or embrace American luxury. Not be a follower, have your own identity. I believe the brand did that really well. Also, back in the day, if you were to look at a Porsche or a Mercedes or a BMW, it was a sea of buttons. I have a friend whose wife wanted a Porsche Macan. But when she sat in that Porsche Macan in 2016, she was intimidated, right? And she didn't want to buy it. So we wanted to do exactly the opposite, is we want people to feel invited. We want them to feel comfortable, right? One of the words was sanctuary. We want this to feel like a sanctuary. So how can we offer the same functionality, the same features, the same niceties and creature comforts, but provide that balance between physical and digital? You
mentioned was sort of the sea of buttons. Usually a sea of buttons, it's a sensory cue to people of complexity. It's also a sensory cue to highly featured and powerful.
Yes.
So it's like, how do you balance that? You bought a luxury vehicle, you want it to be capable, but then you don't want it to be confusing or intimidating, right? Because the whole idea is you have this luxury experience, you want it to work for you. You want it to be smart, like when I'm stuck, help get me unstuck, but don't make me know about the mechanical properties of traction control to do it.
Right, and now we've come to a point where these things can be more predictive, right? So back in the day, it was about showing you a prompt. I think we can extrapolate it to today, where just get me unstuck.
Just do it.
Don't even tell me what you're doing, just do it for me, right?
Exactly, right.
But I agree with you. Back in the day, and I'm just talking, late 20-teens, buttons meant luxury. Buttons meant features. You paid for all this, and that's why you have those buttons. And if you didn't, you would have blanks, which was another.
Right.
As Lincoln, we were like, we don't want blanks.
No,
right? And that's why we standardized the screens. We got into a strategy where you have one screen, which actually ended up being better from a economies of scale standpoint, and so we don't have like multiple screens to manage. But yeah, the goal was, how do you make them feel comfortable? How do you make them feel safe and things are predictable while giving them the right features and the right creature comforts?
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit to sort of the experience idea or the design leadership aspect of that in large businesses today. There's been some things that have been written recently that, like design and experienced leaders had their shot and it didn't work. During COVID, there was a huge buildup of experienced professionals. For me, it was like, wow, finally everybody realizes how important this is and they're hiring armies of people. It wasn't necessarily good for my business as a consultant, but huge, staff up of UXers. And then now just sort of 4 years later, a lot of those UXers have now lost their jobs. So like, what happened in all that?
I want to say from early 2000s to 2020, of course, everybody realized the importance of human-centered design, research, user experience, because it was a big shift, right? It went from utility to desirability. And then there were delighters and wow factors that had to be added to separate yourself from your competitors. And then it was, well, that's not enough. We've got to separate in a more meaningful way, right? So how can we look at doing that? And there were some great examples that came out of it. Like at Ford, the F-150's shifter stowing down, and you can slide your center armrest to have a work surface, right? Knowing that our contractors and professionals don't use your trucks just as a vehicle, they use it as an office, as a dining table.
Yeah.
That helps them. Also, in Europe, we have an e-Tornio van where the steering wheel articulates to become a circular table, right? So great ideas came out of it. Yeah. Of course, companies were flush with cash, right, during that time. And there was more investment, more funding available. And some of these teams ballooned out of proportion. If you do your job as a great UX professional, working, again, closely with other team members, business and engineering specifically, and industrial design, you don't need that many people. The awareness around human-centered design thinking, user experience processes has grown. And I think everybody believes in those processes, those methodologies. The question is, why can't software designers, why can't industrial designers also learn and start practicing UX, right? And to me, that seems like the logical thing. I think everybody should learn about what these methodologies are and how design thinking is done, and that adds value to the collective group, right? And that's how you're going to be more efficient. Of course, then you think about AI, where if you are in an established industry, let's just take websites and apps, for example, or even automotive, AI can help you start not at zero, so you don't have to start your research initiatives and your concepting at the bottom, because AI can get you to maybe 30% right now, right? You can get a leg up because there are enough established stereotypes, enough knowledge that you can start at a higher level playing field, right? And you have that knowledge also from your own experience, your company's experience, but AI can help you there. However, it doesn't replace research. You still have to work with the research firms such as yourselves in some industries where you need that physical interaction. You need the physical testing to really validate, because it's high stakes, automotive, aerospace, industrial automation.
Medical,
right?
yeah, I mean, you name it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I think that piece is critical to understand.
For me, the big opportunity for designers and experienced professionals and design research professionals is to lead that, to get in a multidisciplinary room and to lead that process, because not everybody has the skills of an industrial designer or a UX designer. IT folks, for example, are sensitive to how, what a good construct is for navigation or feedback or whatever. They even have tools now that can help make some of this for them automatically, like you say, in the AI space.
Right.
But it doesn't replace, I don't think it replaces UX or design. It's really a matter of, like you say, we can't be out there on our high horse going, hey, experience is important, and I can't believe you're not doing everything, you're not taking every idea. We have to be part of that multidisciplinary solution, yeah.
Companies are also swinging from one side of the pendulum to the other.
Right.
Because you see the value that AI provides, and you're extrapolating what that means to your headcount, potentially, and you have the economic downturn looming over your head, right? So you're putting these pieces together. So it's better to have a low headcount than a high headcount and work on incremental innovation than groundbreaking innovation, then have that liability, right? So you're looking at it from a business standpoint. Now, I feel like longer term, the UX field is going to continue to flourish. This is a dip. If you were to look at a curve, this is a dip in the progression, but it was continue to flourish for individuals that are truly passionate about user experience. Didn't just join the field because it pays well, and they're actually through and through product designers, user experience, and they're keeping up with the new tools, the new advancements that are happening with AI, and most importantly, are great at communication, great at collaboration, and conflict resolution. Right. This is where, even if you look at AI right now, it's very technology first. It's very neural engine first. Yep. It's data science first, right? Even tools like Midjourney and ChatGPT could have better UIs, and that's around the corner, right? So I believe the AI world is going to create more opportunities for the right UXers who are doing the right work and who are really upskilling themselves.
AI, for me, and I think where I'm seeing the emergence of AI is really as an accelerant, as a collaborator, as a co-pilot with, so it's in the experiences we're creating, but also the internally, for our design teams and things like that. It has to be a collaborative. But what it does is it takes the non-productive time and handles that so that we can focus on more strategic and important things, like how we translate insights to business strategy and design, how we create product roadmaps. Those are the things I think that business leaders look to the design team and they're saying, help me activate the things that you're doing, because it's good work. How do we activate it? And then you've got that nature of the CXO, whose job it is to align the business, closely with the needs of the market and what consumers will adopt and use. And that's how you gain customers and you keep them for life, as you break down the gaps between what the business is doing and what the market and the customer needs. And that means we have to evolve, right? I mean, the work that we do, like any of us, we have to evolve and get better. And so we've talked a little bit today about some of the things that can help us get better. And I think I see the future is very bright for people who are in design, UX, and the research profession. That the need for that does not go away. It's a matter of whether or not we can really step in and seize the opportunity.
One of the things I'm curious about is, with your exposure to multiple industries that you've worked with, which industry do you think has advanced the most in the last 10 years?
It's interesting. If you were to ask which industries are succeeding most at some of this experiential stuff, that's different than who's made the most progress. Honestly, the work that, the experiences we've had in the automotive space, automotive has come a long way. When you see how far, when I first started working on this design, HMI teams were really small. They didn't have a lot of input or purchase in the process. And design teams, especially those working on exterior design, had a lot of power within the automotive organizations. But it was very kind of design focused. It was like, bring in the most famous design person we can to use clay and make things. So the automotive industry for me has come a really long way in terms of how they think about design. It's much more than just human factors. We're talking about the emotional needs of folks. We're talking about sort of like life level mobility and ecosystems of experience and stuff, So that industry has come a long way. There's a lot it needs to do, because it's still behind. It's been late to the game. When you think about what financial services, for example, would be an industry that I think has come a pretty long way, or they've been sort of on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff. It doesn't mean that they've made money any less confusing, because it's still confusing to figure out how to navigate some of those waters for consumers. When you think about the thing about the financial industry is it's highly emotional. So people, money is emotional for people. And it's also highly complex when you think about a 30-year mortgage at X percent, is that good? And, what's escrow? There's a lot of this stuff. And in insurance, it's even worse. It's do I need $1 million of comprehensive or 10 million or 100 million? I have no idea. What's comprehensive? So it's there's this complexity around it. And it's highly emotional because it's about protecting all your stuff. But the finance and insurance industries have noted that and have tried to really focus early on experience centricity. And so I think they've done a pretty good job in that space. The automotive has probably come the furthest in the last 10 years, but they're still, behind. They're still getting there. So it's a mixed bag, I think, but I think across the board, industries have acknowledged that this is an important construct for businesses to succeed. I had an aha moment, this was 10 years ago, but I was working with commercial, industrial kind of company. And, these guys make fluids and variable speed motors and things like that. And at the very top, the president is human experience is going to be the key to our future. And I was we've arrived. When you're making fluids, and they're saying human-centered design is important, I was okay. This is, maybe, maybe we are making a little bit of traction. So anyway, I don't know. That's a long answer to your question. What do you think?
It's great.
What do you think?
Automotive, I feel could have gone a long way. I think they were distracted by a couple things. And, not blaming automotive for it. I mean, there's autonomous driving, back in the 20-teens. Then there was, most companies started looking at advanced driver assistance systems as the way to slowly get there. But really, a few companies stayed on the path of autonomous, fully autonomous. Then it was SDV, and it is a software-defined vehicle, and that's the future. So there's a lot of companies that are traditional automakers that are struggling to change the culture from within to really think in this new way. Yeah. Also from a business standpoint, be able to justify that all the way from your $20,000 car to your $120,000 car, right? In Ford's situation. And then there's EVs, right? Electric vehicles, and being there competing with the top Teslas and BYDs of the world. So that has really taken away from the focus of how can you use a controlled environment
Yeah.
that has lighting, displays, haptics, olfactory, sound, all of these stimuli and levers to potentially put the occupants in the desired mental state.
Yeah.
There's a lot automotive could do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some things that some automakers are getting at, but we could have done a lot more given the processing capability you have in cars these days.
Mm-hmm.
But there's these distractions that have been keeping us from getting there.
It's kind of a return to technology centricity. That's been my little voice in the back of my head is like, we spent all this time shifting from a tech-centric approach to bringing products to market to an experience-centric approach. Like we were really making traction. And then in the last 10 years, I would say, all of a sudden it started becoming about the technology again. Oh, LiDAR, we've got LiDAR. Let's use LiDAR, Or I would have companies come to us and say, we're going to do AI. Like, well, what does that mean? Like, let's talk about what's the value proposition? What are the capabilities and attributes of AI that can help us create better experiences? Because ultimately that's the end. The end is, how do we add value? Really what it comes down to it is every decision that we make in a company either adds value to the customer or doesn't. And if it doesn't add value, we're not in business. We're not competing. So I've sort of shifted from this, like an experience-centric language to more of a value-centric language. Yeah. There has been a shift towards technology centricity with the connected, autonomous, smart, electrified kind of thing that's been going on in automotive. The reason I say they've come some way is because when I first started working with automotive, they couldn't spell experience. You know what I mean? So they're much more aware of it. Now, whether or not they've built organizations that can activate it, I think they're really trying. You see, teams now at CX level, you see product and service design level, and there's a lot of skill acquisition going on. And I'm proud of Lextant's work in that space to help companies. Yeah. They've got, and that's what I mean by, and you've rightly brought out that there's a long way to go yet. We're still not really thinking about the experience around the thing. We're still talking about the thing.
When it comes to the top jobs, chief AI officer or the VP of AI, those don't have to be computer engineers or coders or data scientists. They need to be someone like a CXO or a UX individual leader who's led teams that can understand how to connect the dots and generate value, and how do we use this technology and the call it AI or call it any other technology to your advantage, right? And there's a lot of industries where this individual could really play a good value if they understand how to work collaboratively and bring all that together.
I think it's interesting we treat AI like it's a different technology tool. You know what I mean? It is another technology. It is another thing in the bag that we can use. I mean, there's AI and there's hamburger menus. Well, we got to know how to design both of those things so that people can actually use them. It's like, to me, I'm way more about like, what are the attributes of AI that can help us deliver better experiences? AI is amazing at predicting. It's amazing at creating knowledge. It's amazing at personalization. Okay, well, now how do I take those things and craft better experiences? Because that's ultimately, because I don't, one of the things I'm hearing too is, well, we'll put on the side of the vehicle, powered by AI. And it's like, okay, well, that's interesting to consumers. It might be scary to consumers, but ultimately that's not what it's about. When they're in the vehicle and it anticipates a need or does something that they think is smart, they don't necessarily need to go, oh, that's the AI, isn't it? No, it's the people, the company that put together this thing, the brand that brought you this experience. So AI, the fact that it's AI, I don't know if a lot of consumers care as long as they're having the experience they want to have.
Oh, it's very interesting you say that, because there's companies that are misusing the term. It could be a simple algorithm and they're calling it AI, right?
Yeah.
And on the other hand, there's really good work happening with AI when it comes to prosthetics and medical technology and chemistry. There's
Yeah.
a lot of, and that AI is going to extremely
Sure.
accelerate. Let's take battery technology, for example, or even drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to accelerate that research and bring solutions that we would have probably taken 100 years
Yes.
in a matter of years, right? So
Yeah.
that's going to really be important. I think when we talk about AI, what comes to mind is Metcalfe's law, right? The network effect. Okay, great. But AI is like Metcalfe's law on steroids because you have the network effect, but the network of users are also teaching it
Right,
and
exactly.
coaching it. So it's
Right.
gonna definitely grow at an exponential rate, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But the point is, how do you use this technology in a meaningful way? And that's where a lot of consultations that I'm having are all about that. Some leaders are running after the technology and asking, someone like you or me, how do I use AI? How do I do AI? Right? And some others are asking about, okay, these are the problems I'm facing. How do I solve it? And that's the right approach is look at the issues that you have, and sometimes they may be symptoms. We have to drill down to the root causes and then understand what tool, what solution, what technology can better address that.
Yeah. I think about, so we've done research for years on smart fill in the blank. Companies that come to us and say, well, we're trying to make a smart appliance or a smart toaster or whatever, And so when I think about all of the things that consumers need or desire from smart and what smart looks like, they use consistent words like confidence. I'm confident using it. I'm trusted. It's personalized for me. It anticipates me. It seems to know me. It's uncanny. It's like those are things that are smart experiences. And I think those are the things we need to think about when it comes to the consumer side of AI is like, how do we design experiences that give you the emotional and functional benefits of that? Any final thoughts on recommendations for business leaders or UXR practitioners today? Any final thought of something that you think could help them today that we haven't talked about?
For UX leaders and practitioners, I would say you are more than a UX leader. You're more than a UX practitioner. You have to think business. You have to think value centricity. Working in collaboration with your business partners and your engineering partners is extremely, extremely critical in today's world. And that's what's going to set you up for success.
Same question, but for students, young folks who are coming up. What would you recommend they be thinking about when they think about a career and this experienced profession?
For students, I would say the days of specialization in just UI design or visual and motion design, research only, interaction architecture or UX design, only human factors and ergonomics and accessibility. Those days are gone. You have to be a well-rounded UX designer. That means a couple things. One is it's not digital only. You have to understand physical spaces and digital interfaces both. Doesn't matter your industry, or doesn't matter the goal you have of entering a certain industry. I would highly encourage, because we all as humans live in a physical world. Whether you're on the phone or on a laptop, you're still in the physical world. It always connects. So be a well-rounded UXer. Learn, because these days it's easier. You have a lot of tools at your fingertips, so you should be able to learn about all these facets of user experience or human-centered design. You may still have an inclination towards one or the other, and that's okay. I would also encourage industrial design, CMF, graphic design, and even engineers to get into UX and learn about UX, because that is one way to upskill yourself, but also think about it from a UXer standpoint and vice versa.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I don't think it's that, we have to have every skill. That's not realistic. But, for me, it's like take every opportunity to work with people who are not like you, to work with engineers and to work with marketing people, and because it's going to give you a great perspective about how what you do connects in that ecosystem so that you can help them succeed. I really believe, the way to succeed as a professional is to help others succeed. And you can become kind of a trusted collaborator when you build your collaboration skills. And I think you'll find that you're in the front of the room with a marker more often than you realize. And that's a good thing. That's a good place to be.
Advice to every professional out there is don't avoid conflict. You could, through collaboration, of course, there's going to be healthy tension, and that's okay. That's going to make the collaboration stronger. It's going to bring you closer to your stakeholders. And I can talk from personal experience. When you are approaching the problem and the conflict from a point of view of our goal is to make the product or the service that we're working on better, there's no personal aspect to it. It always drives progress.
And everybody, and that's something I think that everybody shares, right? Everybody's trying to make the experience better. So that's a place where we can align for sure. Hey, Heramb, thanks so much for being with us today. It's been amazing. I've really enjoyed our conversation. So catch Heramb wherever he's at. Definitely reach out to him and continue the conversation. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. As Heramb mentioned, if you'd like to get a hold of him, LinkedIn, and his company's website is what again?
It's going to be plambosolutions.com.
Okay, great. So reach out and continue the conversation there. Thanks for joining us on Seriously Curious. Stay tuned for future episodes. We've got a lot of great stuff. We're going to be talking about the future of healthcare. We're going to talk some more about the future of mobility and public transit. All different kinds of aspects coming up. We'll continue this conversation on AI because we know it's driving a lot of what's happening. So everything on Seriously Curious, again, a podcast, all things business strategy and design. Thanks for being here, and we look forward to seeing you soon.